Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the AI Cash Grain podcast. I'm Satish Nandapurkar, Director of Data Driven Strategies with Quantum Hedging, and today is October 25th. Corn this past week was up 11 cents, closing at 415.25. Soybeans was up 18 cents. Closing at 987.75. We'll go to Cy Monley, who'll talk a bit about the action in the markets this past week and what fundamental traders and what he's hearing from the trading community as to what they're looking for in the next month and out into early next year with this crop. Then Kevin McNew will come along and talk about the AI model for corn and beans. And I will then talk a little bit about our final recommendations as we run some of the models and what the models are saying through our simulations. What it's telling us is really to sell the remaining 15%. We're 85% sold in corn, 85% sold in beans. And in both cases, it's telling us sell that remaining 15% on the October 31st close, which is the end of our benchmark. So I'll come back. I'll first go to Cy, let him talk about the markets. Then Kevin will talk about the models. I'll come back and recap this and then talk about what we're doing to transition AI Cash Grain podcast, because this will be the last AI Cash Grain podcast in this form as you knew it. But first, let me just go to Cy. Cy, take it away.
Well, thank you, Satish. It sure feels like Groundhog Day here, right? The market's in this sideways drift during harvest. We've seen some good demand short term out of corn and beans, and I think that's why you had some spreads rally a little bit, futures rally a little bit. But we're coming to the end of this crop insurance hedge, right? It goes off at the end of October, and my fear is you've got a U.S. farmer that's really underhedged, underpriced, undersold, under everything. And without that crop insurance now moving into November and December, we would really need to see a big demand pickup, I think, for prices to go higher. Market isn't short. Farmer has lots of grain to sell. And our numbers are pretty big on this, on these yields. So my fear is you get into November 1st, no more crop insurance, market's not short, farmer needs to sell, the next leg is down. Now, there might be demand underneath the market, and there's some stories brewing moving forward, but the fundamentalist in me thinks we have one more leg lower, then we can talk about demand. Kevin, do our models say that this is over and prices are going lower?
Hey, thanks, Cy. This week our models didn't really move too much. They kind of followed the market higher and adjusted accordingly. But overall, the theme is kind of a split decision right now. We have corn that kind of wants to stick to the seasonality through the balance of the calendar year, suggesting flat to lower prices for March corn. Right now our forecast is not terribly optimistic. The range of expectations between now and the end of 2024 calendar year is from a low of $4 on March to an upper bound of kind of 450. So kind of in that kind of no man's land of not really getting farmers any sort of like serious optimism here as we move forward. And I think really the takeaway is that we've had a big crop. Our yield forecasts from kind of our vantage point where we're looking at realized farm yields coming out of the field. Right now, we have about 60% of the yields in, and they look really good, especially for corn. It's a really, really strong year. Iowa, Illinois, the top two states are just knocking it out of the park. Nebraska's a little bit curious, but other than that, there's nothing that really suggests that we shouldn't see higher corn yields in USDA further revisions, and that's keeping us kind of in this place of kind of stagnation, if you will. Beans, fortunately, the seasonality is a little more favorable as we come out of harvest, and that's what our model's picking up on. But again, nothing here to really kind of suggest a big move. Now, that's not to say big moves can't happen, but what markets need and what our model needs is something that is significant in terms of some sort of feature or data element that suggests problems or things that could be more bullish Our model doesn't see it right now, as it scans the 450 features that it tracks and looks to make predictions. So our model is not picking up on anything that suggests big, sharp changes. And likewise, the market, is not really kind of moving around much either. I mean, it's moving up, in one week, down in the next week. It's just really having a hard time. And I think that's probably what we'll see for the balance of 25 the balance of the 2024 calendar year for beans. So, probably getting up into the $10 range for January beans, maybe up into the 10.25, 10.50 range, but overall, just not a lot really here that suggests a change in the economic circumstances that our farmers are feeling as we come out of the field.
Thanks, Kevin. And just if you remember our whole approach with AI Cash Grain, the AI Cash Grain program was to beat the benchmark. And in both corn and soybeans, our benchmark was a predetermined strategy of selling an increasing percentage of expected bushels each month end on the close from January through October. This October 31st will be the last benchmark sale of 15%. And so the benchmark will be 100% sold at that time. Our goal is to beat that benchmark by relying on our model forecasts to determine an optimal cash selling strategy that maximized the win probability. In corn, as I've talked about many times, we did a really good job with that because our models told us to get bearish in May. We got bearish in May, we got oversold, and then we closed out our oversold at the end of August. So we ended up being oversold right at the right time when corn dropped. And as a result, we're well ahead of our benchmark at this point. So we're 85% sold at 443. The benchmark's 85% sold at 432 approximately. As I mentioned before, the recommendation is going to be to sell 15% on the October 31st close. So that's coming up in 6 days. We will send out an alert to you to remind you to sell on the October 31st close, the last 15%. It'll put the program at 100% sold. We won't know what the exact numbers are, but because the benchmark's selling at the same level we're selling at, we know we're going to track to a 9.5% outperformance versus the benchmark, which we're quite happy with. It's what we were hoping to deliver to our subscribers in corn. With respect to beans, we got a little bearish there in May. We closed off that. We got neutral a little too early, and we missed probably the second half of that drop in soybeans. We caught the first half, but we missed the second half. So we sit at 85% sold in beans, equivalent to the benchmark now. We're at 1093.50. The benchmark's at 1087, so we're ahead. We are also going to recommend selling that last 15% on the October 31st close. Again, it'll put the program at 100% sold, which will finish this program for 2024. With respect to beans, we're going to track to a 4.8 cent outperformance versus the benchmark. It is an outperformance. We're happy with it. When we look back and we start to think about our models, they are learning models. We use machine learning here. Next year, hopefully, if it drops the same way, we'll catch the entire drop. But right now we're at 4.8 cent. We're still at a beat. So we are happy with that. So our summary and recap for the week. Corn and beans, corn were both up. Corn was up 11 cents. Beans were up 18 cents. And Kevin came along and talked a bit about the models and what they've been saying. And finally, we have this sale recommendation, really just to close out the program. 15% on October 31st for corn, 15%. Sell that last remaining 15% in beans. We will be 100% sold, and thus the program will come to a close. As I mentioned, we are actually transitioning the AI Cash Grain service. We're no longer going to offer that service. We're offering new services for our subscribers and special promotions with that. And I'm going to talk about that in a second here. But first, I just wanted to say thank you for being a subscriber. We've really enjoyed putting this together for you. We're glad we were ahead of the game in both cases, beating in corn, beating in beans. We hope you've enjoyed listening to us and hearing how we put together. And we hope you stay with us as we transition this program into new programs for farmers that are more custom tailored to your farm. So if you give me a second here, we'll talk about that shortly. So as I mentioned earlier, and I mentioned last week, we are ending the AI Cash Grain service and the podcast on October 31st. Paid subscribers, you should check your email. We've sent out emails in terms of the transition and what we're offering and some of the special programs that we're offering for anyone that came along with us as a subscriber. Why are we eliminating the podcast? Because we heard feedback that said that you wanted this AI-driven market insights and strategy, but you wanted a more hands-on, custom-tailored service for your farm. So we are going to be doing a podcast starting soon, which will be a free offering for everyone, where Kevin and Cy are going to be talking about markets and models. But there's going to be a new AI managed acres program launching this fall to support farmers with customized hedging services and cash grain selling services for their farm. The approach is a holistic approach where we're managing the profitability of the farm. We'll be taking into account insurance that you've bought, cash sales, futures and options. We'll be overlaying what our models are saying, but first we'll be analyzing what the net risk is from all those products, all those risk management products, and then deciding based on what the models are telling us as to where markets might be going probabilistically in the future. Do we need to sell more grain, unwind by buying futures, do some puts, sell some calls, things like that? So the program is much more hands-on. It'll have a dedicated advisor. It'll have daily emails, weekly farm profitability reports. It'll have a different fee structure. But again, for subscribers of this podcast, we have special programs. So again, we hope you've enjoyed the podcast and this AI cash grain service. We've appreciated the feedback that you've given us as to what you've wanted to see. We look forward to moving forward with that, and we hope you guys come along with us. Please feel free to email us or call us if you have any questions whatsoever about the new program, and we'll see you again soon. And again, remember, we will be sending out an alert to remind you to sell grain on the 31st, that last 15%. And we'll do one final video just sort of recapping the entire program.